Hi everyone, so Path of Exile's new league is just around the corner, patch 3.13, Echoes of the Atlas with the Ritual League, and they have just released the new Ascendancy reworks. So there have been tons of buffs and nerfs, nothing really too crazy, besides the reworks of 3 Ascendancies, which are Deadeye, Inquisitor and Elementalist, all of which I'm really hyped about. They look really amazing. But I want to go over them and talk a bit about what I think are the good ones and maybe also explain like the basics of these here. So there's a link for this in the description. You can check it out for yourself at your own pace if you like, but here we go. So I basically wrote down a few key points for each of them, and let's start with the Slayer here from Duelist. So this one, I got a big buff here with the extra range. You have +4 melee range now, and you have 8% crit now, which is really nice. Overall, I feel like Slayer is looking pretty good. So if you look at the other Ascendancies on Duelist, Slayer can definitely be used for some really heavy crit melee build. And it still has this infinite life leech, so to say. And that is really cool. I would essentially just skip the entire path here. That was probably like one of the standard things to use with like the 20% cull and this kind of stuff. It's easy to get the 10% cull in your build, and I don't really feel this has a lot of value anymore here. But there's definitely a lot of cool stuff with endurance charges and frenzy charges too. So for a melee build, I will definitely try this at some point. Here's the Gladiator. It's basically good as always, based around block and bleed. And you have those Bleedsplosions. It got nerfed a little bit, but overall nothing really crazy. You can go really fast here with the Challenger charges, giving you more attack and move speed. And you have the Bleedsplosions here, that are still insane if you want to go really quick, so you can just combine those two things here. And then you have some other stuff like frenzy and endurance charges here, and obviously the whole block path if you want to go really tanky. Overall, this is probably still the way to go if you want to make a really tanky melee character with block. That is not going to be a Juggernaut. Then we have the Champion. So the Champion was usually the go-to for Impale, and this one got heavily nerfed. So here it was Impales inflict 2 additional lasts for 2 additional hits, and you also have 20% chance to impale. Getting to 100% impale chance is not really such a big deal anymore these days, but you have to still invest a little bit into it, and this one got removed. So you have to try a little bit harder for that. And now that impales only last 1 additional hit, it actually opens up the possibility to go with other physical based ascendancies instead of only Champion, because Champion was, if you wanted to play an only physical build, you had to go Impale, and you had to take Champion basically if you want to make it good. And now we actually have some other options. Other than that, it's basically good as always. You have the Fortify stuff here, you have the Adrenaline, which is still nuts, so you can just activate this on purpose with Blood Magic, Aura, and then walk into the boss fight and blast them. So this is insane. And then you have the other stuff here that is all pretty good. Just the Impale stuff got a bit nerfed. So it would be interesting to try a Champion that is not based around Impale, I guess, which I so far haven't done. So here's a Shadow. For the Shadow, we have some nerfs to the Assassin, but it's still really good. So we have the Elusive stuff here. We have a lot of like power charges, power charge generation, and basically crit scaling. And there's also poison scaling. So that one looks really nice. Some kind of like poison assassin with like lots of crit chance. You can do lots of damage like this. That could be interesting. And other than that, it's gonna be very good for bossing. Like when you have either one enemy, you do more damage to them, or when there's multiple of them, then you take less damage. So this is overall a very nice combo here from Opportunistic, and definitely really cool to just blast down those bosses. Next is the Saboteur. So this is always solid, especially with mines. A lot of people use mines here. Traps are not really very common, I think, but I like traps, so whenever I would play one, I would probably go that route. And it's got a little bit of a small buff, but overall it's a very solid. It's usually a bit more slow paced, but it can really be very safe to use this, because you can stand back, have your mines explode somewhere in the front, and typically they have like some other synergies where you freeze stuff or like apply really huge shocks or something. And the good thing is that you don't take reflected damage. You can just chill, and you don't have to worry about anything basically. And especially in 3.13 now we have a really big bossing league. I would actually imagine to see some more of these Saboteurs with some heavy boss damage that just blast down those endgame bosses. Finally, here's the Trickster. Trickster is basically good as always. You have these Ghost Shrouds. They got changed a little bit, so now it's 3% damage reduction instead of 2, but you lost some other stuff like the evasion. Some small back and forth here. Overall, I think it is like a very defensive Ascendancy, if you want to play a Shadow especially. And yeah, you have like lots of life recovery, mana recovery, shield recovery, and not really too much damage. So the only real big damage node here is Harness the Void. And if you want to make use of that, you have to go for like rather specific setups with like lots of conversion, because every elemental conversion step, like physical to lightning and then cold to fire or whatever, all these add like an extra step in the calculation into an extra instance of damage, or this chaos damage here. So this is how you would scale this. So you have to go for these kind of setups if you really want to make use of it. But otherwise you have like easy power and frenzy charge generation here when you channel, so that's pretty neat. And then lots of defense here from this path, so there's like some stuff to choose. I've never played the Trickster myself. I know it was really popular for mini leagues because it's so tanky, and I think it's still pretty good in that aspect. Here's the Marauder with the Juggernaut. So we have basically the same stuff as always, lots of armor, lots of regeneration, lots of damage reduction, endurance charges. So basically good as always, especially, you know, against physical damage. You can stack up a lot of defense, and you can stack a little bit of the offense in the process. So the main advantage here typically is that you don't really die very much, but you're also a bit slower and don't scale as much as other Ascendancies. So the main advantage of Juggernaut is that it's very good for hardcore if you want to play a melee character, and it's very good at the very high end when you have super insane gear, because a lot of the damage will come from the gear and from, you know, whatever passives you choose in a tree, and you are basically tanky by default. So this is a good advantage here, because it's very hard to become tanky while keeping up a DPS. But here you get it all from your Ascendancy and then can go full DPS everywhere else pretty much. So that's the good part. Here's the Berserker. It got some really nice buffs, for example, plus 10 maximum rage, and just in general you have insane rage effects now. There's also more rage effects on the passive tree now. So overall you can stack insane bonuses here. So when you have something like 70 rage, you're gonna have 210% attack damage and 135% attack speed, and even like 40% movement speed or so. So this is nuts. And then on top of that, you can have the blitz charges that give you another 40% more attack speed. So it all goes at the cost of crit. So it will probably go for some like, you know, really hard hitting two-handed weapon and no crit scaling maybe. I guess you could try it with like super endgame gear to actually also go crit at the same time, but it will be difficult. But just in general, like, it's gonna be fast and it's gonna be blasting. That just will do so much damage. And if you want even more damage, you can take Aspect of Carnage at the cost of taking 10% more damage. So there is a really good upside, but also a really strong downside of this, because 10% extra damage taken is pretty huge. But you can also go with other stuff that helps you out a lot when you go for more slow-paced gameplay with the Warcries here, for example. So overall, I really like this one, and I definitely want to try out some Berserker Archer at some point. That could be very fun, I believe. Finally, we have the Chieftain. So this is inspired around fire damage and totems, and also some melee attacks and endurance charges. So it has a lot of stuff here, and basically also very like tanky, safe Ascendancy, a bit more slow-paced, because you know, always set up your totems, or you focus entirely on totems if you like. And then you can have like fire damage leech. You can have like these are like clones that use your attacks here. So overall, pretty cool combo where you can kind of like set up a totem and blast together with them, or you just go full in on all in on totems. So this is what you could do here. Also a rather safe Ascendancy to play, a quite tanky one with a different playstyle. So here's the Witch. We have the Necromancer first. Necromancer got a slight nerf, but it has been dominating the meta for a long time, and especially those zombie spectre builds. I mean, there's a bunch of things that you can do here, and all of them are pretty good, and I don't think it will really hurt the class very much. It's just like tuned down a little bit. You can look at the changes here. They removed 15% damage and added 10% to remove like some other stuff here, but overall not really the biggest deal. Still the go-to for any kind of minion build, I assume. Here's the Occultist. So this one got a bit of changes. So it was previously focused more on dots with like cold damage over time multiplier, chaos damage over time multiplier. Now it got straight up cold damage and chaos damage. So that is pretty cool here. So you can take one of these two paths, for example, and otherwise it's like, you know, heavily focused around energy shield and curses. And also you have this explosion here with Profane Bloom that is completely insane. That one actually got buffed with 40% chance to explode, dealing a quarter of the maximum life with chaos damage. So like this you can just zoom map as long as you kill like 1 or 2 or 3 little monsters, and everything will basically just explode. So all you need to do is like apply a curse somehow and then kill them, and everything is gonna melt. So this is gonna be very nice, and you can choose to, you know, go for direct damage now as well instead of just dots. So this can be pretty cool to play in Occultist like this. Here's the Elementalist. This is the first one that got reworked, and it's looking amazing now. So there's also this new support gem called Trinity Support, and that basically allows you to play different elements at the same time. So you use like a fire skill here and a lightning skill there, and they're both linked with Trinity Support, and they will basically buff each other's damage through that gem. So you can basically focus on like 2 or 3 elements of this, and you have all these paths here on their own now. You have the golden path that is really strong, especially for defense. You have the Bastion of Elements, another defensive path. So I think that Elementalist is going to be very nice, very strong, and also very tanky. So overall, it looks amazing just the way that the whole thing works. And you have this convergence here that gives you like more damage when you need it the most against uniques and bosses. It's obviously not really going to be so crazy in like prolonged fights, but you still get an effect when you don't have it. So there's a lot of cool stuff here, and either you can focus on 1 element only, or you can go for 2 or even 3 elements. So I think exploring these possibilities now with this new support gem are going to be incredible. So definitely a very nice job here. Next is the Ranger with the Deadeye. This was the one that I was most hyped about, because when I saw that there was going to be a Deadeye rework, I felt this was definitely needed. And well, here we are, and it also looks amazing. So you have some bleed stuff here. You can go with this Rupture node that gives you 75% more damage from bleeding. This is insane. Then you have the Far Shot, which gives you up to 60% more damage when you shoot from a further distance. And your barrage has no spread, so you can actually barrage from a distance. So this is what I'm gonna try. I'm gonna play a rain of arrows, barrage, like sniper basically, and see how that goes. Definitely wanna progress to the end game bosses with this and just see how that feels. We have endless munitions buffed with 2 additional projectiles. We have Mirage Archers that work completely different here now. So you're gonna be standing on the ground and you can have up to 3 of them. This is also incredible for bossing, I assume. And then we have the Tailwind giving you this Gale Force now. So you get up to 20% more action speed, and you get up to 30% less damage taken as long as you don't get hit all the time. So you basically just have to regenerate this Gale Force whenever you get hit. So basically whenever you get hit, you just keep regenerating this Gale Force, and with very high attack speed, that's going to be, you know, in a matter of 2 seconds or so. And you have 30% less damage taken. This is insane, especially with some evasion, especially when you're dodging a little bit. This is gonna make a very tanky archer. I'm very excited to try this out and just go blast at this. And you have this effect of marks. So you have like a lot of different paths, a lot of different options here to go with on an archer build now. And I'm really excited because basically this covers almost anything you want on an archer. You can do element, you can do bleed, you can do physical. I'm gonna be playing with Impale, for example. And yeah, just really excited to try many builds of this eventually. And here's the Raider. This one also got some significant buffs. First of all, we have lots of Onslaught here. So you can take this Onslaught path with 50% increased Onslaught effect and perma Onslaught, and the 100% extra Onslaught effect, and 35% more evade chance for melee and projectile hits. So this is going to give you insane evasion. You can probably reach like 70% with like almost no investment, and you get like 50% attack speed, move speed, cast speed on this. So this is pretty nuts. And then we have 50% flat dodge for attacks and spells. With phase acrobatics, you have 55% chance to dodge attacks, 45% chance to dodge spells. So this is just very tanky. As long as you can survive the one-shots, you are most likely not going to die very much. And you have the perma phasing, which looks awesome. And it also gives you these elemental exposures here. So in case you're playing an elemental build, you want to go for this. And otherwise, you can also just go with the frenzy charges and maybe try to get the exposures in another way. So either way, it looks pretty good and it's amazing. And when you stack all the frenzy charges there is, you can also go for the final node here for like the more offensive route and do even more damage and more DPS at the cost of this spell and attack dodge here, which maybe late game is not really that crazy anymore once they have a lot of evasion at the same time. Here's the Pathfinder. This one got some interesting changes as well. So this is usually the flask Ascendancy. You have like perma all flasks all the time because of this node here. So this is really insane. You have lots of flask effect, and then you can choose to either go like some poison route or you can take some elemental route. So nothing really crazy. They removed the Herald of Agony synergy here, so you can actually use Herald of Agony on other classes now or other Ascendancies more effectively, I guess. So that's probably a good thing, because previously it was simply so good on Pathfinder, and while you could make it work on others, I believe that it's probably good to remove it because it was so focused here. But at the same time, they also added physical convert to chaos damage here. So that is quite interesting, because coupled with some other conversion to chaos, you can actually get really high rates there. And for example, with Scourge Arrow, you get 60% by default, so you would have 100% physical chaos conversion. And like this, you can scale crazy chaos damage, and it could be very nice for any kind of like Scourge Arrow build when you play an archer, and then you have the flasks. So this alone can produce some really unique archer builds, because Scourge Arrow is like a very unique skill that is used for bosses and for trash, and then you have like a full extra 6-link in your bow or whatever that you can use for something else, or you can even use like a Chaos Heart or whatever, and you don't really have to worry about this. So that was pretty amazing, and definitely excited. I've actually played a Pathfinder with some setup like this in Betrayal, so like 2 years ago or so, and that was pretty nice. Maybe I'll do something like this again at some point. And even if you don't use the Scourge Arrow, you have something like this here with like more damage on poisons, and you also have the poison spread, which is insane in some cases. For example, these Alva Temples, you have like some enemies grouped up around Architects, and the Architect will just melt immediately, because basically all the poisons will go from normal enemies towards the big guy, and he just insta dies. So this is amazing, especially during mapping. So here's a Templar, especially the left side here got a big rework. We have this Battle Mage node, and this one says that you gain added spell damage equal to the damage of your main hand weapon. So basically, like in the picture, you can wear like this super heavy two-handed mace or whatever, and it will add all that damage to whatever spells you're gonna use. So this one is really cool. I really like this hybrid combination you can do with this, and definitely very excited to try this out. So I think after the Deadeye, I'll definitely go for something like this here, and then try to have like a 6-link melee attack and maybe like a 6-link spell that I use at the same time, and then you can just completely blast stuff. So it can be amazing. And not only that, but it's also this new fanaticism that gives you 75% more cast speed, reduced mana cost, and increased area of effect after essentially hitting something in melee. So it synergizes with the previous one, and it puts a higher focus on the spell casting. But just in general, I imagine you can do something like Warcry with some exerted attacks with a slam, and then like hit really hard with an earthquake or so. And at the same time, you can just cast right after that earthquake until it has this aftershock effect. So you can kind of weave these things together. So I imagine it's going to be a very fun playstyle. Or you just have the melee weapon as like a stat stick, and maybe you have like some melee attack like that gives you fortifying and cull and these kind of things. And then you just go for full spellcaster afterwards with like a very heavy damage scaling weapon on like a really weak skill. So something like this could also be very interesting. Otherwise, you're also still focused on crit chance here with ignore monster resistances. You have really cool stuff like this more damage taken and less damage done from enemies. And you also have this consecrated path stuff here, but I don't really think this looks so good anymore. Anyway, the big highlight here is definitely this Battle Mage node, because this makes Inquisitor completely unique, and I'm very excited to try this one out. Here's the Hierophant. This one is also got a really nice new node here with the +4 to minimum endurance and power charges. So this is amazing, and just this node alone already makes the class feel very special on its own. It can definitely do some nice combos with this, I imagine. Otherwise, here's like some typical sort of totem focus stuff. Here's like some mana stuff, and then you can do like some other stuff. So it's like overall a really solid like spellcaster, totem, brand, like kind of like this, stand back and use other things to do damage with, kind of Ascendancy, while being quite tanky, while just having, you know, these charges here with lots of crit chance. So I think this could be also very fun to play. Here's the Guardian. So I think one of the highlights from this rework is the reduced effect of curses on you. So typically this was way too weak and way too hard to scale, and now you have this. So you can basically self-curse with, you know, some of these effects. There's like, for example, a belt where you curse yourself with vulnerability, but you get like a huge upside. But you have to stay cursed somehow. And the downside is usually too much on these things. But here the downside is heavily reduced, and now you can actually use these kind of effects to give you some other power boosts. So I think this is something to explore with on this class if you're playing this alone. Otherwise, you can also play like your typical, maybe like summon minions, summon the Sentinels from like Dominating Blow or from Herald of Purity, or you can just play like a support character with this because there's like lots of stuff, like you share the charges, buffs to your allies, and then you debuff the enemies. So there's like lots of stuff like this. But I think the highlight here is definitely this Time of Need node with 80% reduced effect of curses on you, and also heals you a bit, which is very nice. Just passively, when you ever get a big hit and you don't have anything ready, you just walk around for a few seconds. So also pretty neat. And yeah, definitely makes me want to try it at least. And of course you have this power, frenzy, and endurance charge generation. So you get all 3 charges for free basically, just by attacking a little bit. So this is really nice, and then of course you can share all this to all your minions and whatever you're doing. So definitely pretty cool. And finally, here's the Ascendant. So there were lots of little adjustments. It's hard to go over them all, but I would say that some of the highlights definitely are the Elementalist here, with the can attack elemental damage reflected. And you have the exposure, which is nice. You have the shock, which is nice. So this is very strong, especially for any kind of like elemental build, and especially elemental spellcasters. And you get a golem on top. Then you have the Pathfinder, of course, with the charges for your flasks. You have the Deadeye, that's always nice with an extra projectile. You have stuff like Raider and Assassin that can give you the power or the frenzy charges. You have the Jug here that can give you the endurance charges. You have the Berserker here for the rage. And you have some other stuff like the Inquisitor here that has like some other elemental synergy. You have like a little bit of totem stuff here with the +1 totem from Hierophant. So nothing really too crazy that changed here. So overall, Scion Ascendant looks really nice too, because you can combine a lot of really cool effects here from all the other classes. Yeah, so overall I have to say that many Ascendancies that I previously never really was going to try look really awesome, because they added some really cool effects to them and gave them some more identity. So that's amazing. For example, here with all the charges and this reduced effect of curses, I definitely want to try out some Guardian at some point now. I definitely want to try out the Inquisitor. This one looks amazing because it has like this completely unique playstyle. Then you have like this Deadeye stuff as a tanky long-range archer. Like previously, you were always forced into going point blank if you wanted to have maximum DPS. Now you can actually play far shot. Now you can do this with Barrage. So lots of amazing stuff. And you're tanky as hell with the Gale Force. So just amazing here. And of course the Elementalist, we can go like different paths and maybe combine 2 or 3 different elements with the Trinity support gem. Yeah, just in general, I gotta say, really nice work. Really interesting to see what's gonna be meta. And I really like that you can do so many different setups now, even more than before. It just keeps getting more in Path of Exile, and that's the thing that I guess everyone enjoys the most. So I hope that you also liked my thoughts here. I know this has been pretty long, but there's a lot of Ascendancies, a lot of stuff to talk about. So I hope this also gave you a bit of an overview of the upcoming patch, and hope you like this video. See you guys next time.